My journey to Zagreb was a long one, involving 2 train journeys and an early start. My first train took me to Zadani Most station, which is located in a Slovenian village of less than 300 people. The small station was surrounded by mountains, and there was a real sense of being an outsider. There was also a slight feeling of lawlessness as I watched the train conductor walking back and forth on the tracks. The station felt very outdated and unsuitable for tourists. Everything was in Slovenian, and there were no digital boards telling you what platform to go to. Whilst this was somewhat inconvenient, there was something nice about being in a station that felt like a step back in time. When I boarded my second train, someone was sitting in my reserved seat, but I didn't really feel like sitting down in a stuffy train compartment, so I ended up standing at the window, and I was so glad I did. I had the breeze in my face and the most incredible views. Mountains and lakes passed by, and I felt so grateful for where I was and what I was doing, and I was overwhelmed with the feeling that I was exactly where I was supposed to be. It felt like a very profound and meaningful moment. That was until I had the train conductor shouting at me in Slovenian to sit down for passport checks, which conveniently delayed the journey by 45 minutes and completely ruined my profound moment. I arrived at my hostel 11 and a half hours after leaving Vienna, and I was delighted to be given my own little mezzanine. It felt more luxurious than I was expecting. Sadly, the rest of the room was a bit of a mess, and the bathroom was cramped, damp, and had clearly not been cleaned in a while. A dark navy shower offered me no comfort, as I could only imagine the dirt it was hiding. Unfortunately, I was sharing a room with some girls who like to leave their mess everywhere. I immediately hated staying here for this reason. I braved the shower, but I felt more disgusting after it than I did before it, so I spent the evening researching hotels and snacking in my mezzanine. I ended up having an interesting chat with someone else staying in the dorm, which helped me to feel more comfortable, so I made the decision to hold off booking a hotel and to at least try and stay for one night. After being awoken by drunk backpackers during the night, I dragged myself out early and walked to the bus station where I got a coach to Plitvice National Park, which was a 2-hour drive from Zagreb. This was hands down the best thing I did in my entire trip. I have never been anywhere so beautiful. I spent my morning walking around Zagreb to see what it had to offer. I went to the Croatian Museum of Naive Art. Naive art refers to art produced by individuals with no formal training that has a recognisable style and is distinguishable from amateur art. Following the art gallery, I went to the Museum of Broken Relationships. It was a unique museum consisting of objects that represented a broken relationship of some sort. One object was a mobile phone from an ex-partner. The partner had given the mobile phone after the breakup so that he wouldn't receive so many phone calls from his ex. There were 2 stones that had been exchanged between a couple in a long-distance relationship that did not work out, or could not work out. There was a destroyed videotape that had been run over by a car, stabbed, shot at and burned. It was the wedding tape of a father marrying a woman who ended up ruining his life, and the family took great pleasure in destroying the tape after he passed away. There was a film canister of cremated ashes. The rest of the ashes had been scattered around the world. It reminded me that when I got home, I would be scattering the ashes of my dad in the place that he wished to lie. It also made me think about my own death and how I quite liked the idea of being scattered around the world and how cool it would be to end up in a museum. Whilst a lot of the objects had poignant meanings, some were more entertaining. There was a pizza box representing the broken relationship someone had with pizza due to intolerances. Overall, I loved the originality of the museum and all the stories that went with the objects. It made me think about what objects I could use to represent any broken relationships I have had in my life. After the museum, I got myself some coffee, followed by fish and chips for dinner, and I saw some graffiti art in a park where I spent the evening hanging out and writing. And that's my postcard from Zagreb. I was proud of myself for putting up with the hostel, but it taught me that this trip for me wasn't so much about building connections with others, but instead it was about building a connection with myself. I enjoyed some of the passing conversations I had and the interesting people that I met, but I found that most people wanted to party, and I'm kind of past all that. I also realised that sharing spaces with others frustrates me too much. I prefer to meet people out in the world rather than in the place I sleep. Overall, Zagreb was a pleasant surprise for me, as my expectations weren't too high. It was a very cheap city, and having the opportunity to travel to Plitvice Lakes was immensely rewarding, as it really made me appreciate the moment. It felt like a mystical, otherworldly place that really took my breath away, and it enforced a sense of excitement about being able to see the world and appreciate it.